Welcome to my tutorial for Stalker for the X68000. And this is going to be a tutorial for hard mode. This is also going to cover some speedrun tactics as well, as I did a casual speedrun of the game. I noticed about halfway through normal I was playing the game very aggressively and the game just started to click for me. So it was flowing, real smooth transitions. So I decided that, I enjoyed the game so much I decided to play it over on hard and just from the beginning try to speed run it. So this really wasn't a refined run or anything like that. It was just playing very aggressive from what I learned on normal. A lot of stuff wasn't really too rehearsed, but I had the general idea down after normal. You fight a lot of the same enemy types, but there's a nice variety of enemies. This is an awesome game. The art style is awesome. Really reminds me of like a souped-up Genesis game, if Genesis had the graphics to do this kind of shit. But this would have been a great Sega Genesis game, even scaled back a little bit. Too bad that this didn't get released on anything except PlayStation, FM Towns Marty, which is a very obscure computer, and X68000, which was only another Japanese computer that it's an awesome computer, but we didn't get it here in the U.S. So, the PlayStation version has more 3D polygon type graphics, and it has a coin waster style, as I call it, which means you basically just keep pressing start to win. You can continue without any consequences, really, aside from maybe losing points or something. But I don't think anyone really plays these games for points. So that's the easiest version if you just want to beat a version of the game. You can try that. It is very good as well, but I prefer the cleaner 2D visual style of the FM Towns and X68 versions. I have a playthrough of the FM Towns game on normal, a speed run that I did. I did it right after beating this, so the game was still fresh in my mind. So that came out pretty good for an unrehearsed speed run. I'm not really a speed runner, but occasionally I will mess around and try to do a speed run, but I don't put a lot of time into them. It took me about 2 to 3 hours to beat normal on this port of the game, and then another 63 minutes to do this run. So this is a segmented speed run, meaning I edited out all the deaths from the checkpoints that the game gives you. I didn't splice any parts together or do anything cheating like that, but I just edited out deaths on all the game's checkpoints where I died. So yeah, awesome game. I'm going to have plenty of time to go over the controls, so I'll try not to bang all the information out at the beginning of the video and then have nothing to say. But yeah, so there's basically two attacks. You have a light attack and a heavy attack. There's only two attack buttons. There's only two buttons on this game that you can use. A lot of X68 games were like that. There were some 6-button games, but a lot of them were 2-button. So you got your light attack and your heavy attack, and if you press light and heavy attack at the same time, you can block. Now, I never blocked because I found that I tend to like the most aggressive play style possible. That's what's natural for me. I like to play very aggressively. I'm not really I will play defensively and tactically if a game makes me do it, but the thing that I'm going to be trying the most is aggressive tactics until the game really forces me to change that. So I recommend being as aggressive as possible. I think it makes the game easier, but of course it's going to depend on your skill level. Not everyone's going to be as good with aggressive, precise kind of tactics. You do have a decent amount of health though, so you can mess up. You don't have to be perfect. So I would probably recommend an aggressive play style for most players. Like I'm doing in this speed run, I recommend doing this because this didn't take a lot of refinement to get down. As this was only my second playthrough through the game, so I think it's pretty doable. Yeah, so of course for the purpose of a speed run, this is not really necessary. But I do the dash forward move. There's 2 special moves. So the way you do your special moves is you hit forward twice and then hit one of the attack buttons, and that if you do that, that's going to do your forward dash that you see me doing for general movement. Like whenever you see me moving, like horizontally, you mostly see me dashing. I'm doing that, of course, because it's faster than walking, so that's just for like a speed run, but it's also good because it's an aggressive way to push the enemies and really and pressure them, you know, so it works both ways. The other move is if you press down twice, you can do a dragon punch type of move. So to do that, I mean, basically there's two types of dragon punches that you want to be aware of. If you press down twice and do your light attack, you do a short dragon punch like that. Very short. That's the one you're going to want to use to exploit bosses. Most bosses can't really figure out how to deal with that. Now, if you press down twice and with your heavy move, you will do a high dragon punch. Now, it may also do more damage as well. I don't think it's just a higher attack. I think it actually, if it hits, will do more damage, I believe, is what it seems to be. But, again, I do not have the mechanics, all the little intricacies worked out because this was kind of a casual run, you know, so I don't know all the little details. But it did seem that the higher dragon punch did seem to do a lot more damage. As far as the dash, I don't know if the dash with the heavy attack is more powerful. It may be. You'd have to experiment with that. But either way, keep that in mind. I never really use the light attacks. The only thing I use light attack for is when I'm doing my dragon punch. I do those little short dragon punches by pressing down twice in the light attack. That's what I mainly use light attack for. I don't really do the little the jabs and the little trip kicks, you know, the weak little kicks. I'm not really into doing that. Maybe you could combo those into something and it might be useful, but I didn't find it too useful. So I mainly use the heavy attack button almost exclusively. I only use the light attack button pretty much when I'm doing short dragon punches. Now, of course, the higher ones are useful for things that are above you that you can't reach. You can knock them out of the air, which is very good. These little balls with electricity can be very irritating. These ones are not so bad, but the red ones are extremely annoying. They're the most annoying enemy in the game, and I don't always have a good way to deal with them. But the idea is you want to hit them when they're not flashing with lightning, because they will hurt you. You may be able to damage them as well, but they will also hurt you. So you don't want to hit them when they're flashing. Now, for a lot of these guys, the main strategy is to use your dash to get in close, and then do those short little dragon punches you see me doing. Not the high ones, but the actual, like that, yeah, because I do use the high ones sometimes to try to do more damage, but the short ones are the most effective against enemies and bosses. If you keep spamming that, the enemy will not be able to often get out of that. I mean, some enemies will, but you can pull a lot of bullshit with it. So it's worth always trying that. Now, another thing I did was I was using a rapid fire controller, so I set the I set both attack buttons to rapid mode. So when I hold them down, they rapidly fire. And by doing that, I'll hold one of the buttons, and all I got to do is double tap either down or double tap forward, and the moves will automatically come out, either the dragon punch or the dash. It allows me to do those moves very quickly and consistently. So if you're doing it manually, you know, you'll have to do it, you know, that way. It'll be a little bit harder to do, a little bit more consistently, but they're easy moves to do, and the game is very responsive. So you shouldn't have too much trouble using that technique. But yeah, you see, once you get the guy cornered with here, he has very little trouble. Now, of course, for a speed run, I'm sure this is not the best way to do it. If I was actually trying to learn the game and do, really good speed run or something like that, I would put a lot more time and learn more techniques to try to do things faster. But this is very unrefined. Some of the bosses kind of drag out a little bit because I'm spamming the dragon punch, and I don't really have any other tactics for the boss. You know, because I didn't really spend a lot of time trying to learn how to do alternate. You know, I didn't really spend any time doing alternate techniques on any of the bosses. I just beat them however they went down. I learned some from trial and error of just playing through the game on normal and then trying it again on hard. Which, of course, on hard I decided to just speed run it straight out. So basically, I'm just playing as aggressively as I can just to make it, more enjoyable. I was also, it just felt natural for me at this time to play very aggressive and fast with the game. It's what felt, normal for me, because I don't like spending a lot of time on single enemies. If I can move fast, it just feels better for me. And this is a great game for that type of aggressive playing. The controls are great, very responsive game, and it's pretty short. It's not too long. It's a great game for a speed run. But yeah, once you get a lot of these guys cornered, you can kind of just use your short dragon punches. You don't have to use those high ones. I think they do a little bit more damage, like I said, maybe a lot more, but they're not as easy to land. If you do a lot of short ones, you have a higher percentage of landing hits because you're doing more attacks. So I find that to be better most of the time. Now for these guys, you can just do your dash attack, and you'll take out most of them. But for some of the upper ones, you may want to do some of the high dragon punches to knock them, to like loosen them from the top and get them down. But you could, of course, just be really lazy with it and just keep doing dash attacks. Eventually, they would probably come down and hit into your moves. You can also do throws. You can do throws in the air and on the ground, as you saw me do twice. One on the ground, one in the air. You can do that. It's similar to Street Fighter, how you hold forward and one of the strike buttons, and you'll do a throw. But it's not the easiest thing to do on enemies. A lot of times, if you get in really close, sometimes I'll just get it almost accidentally because I'm so close to the enemy. So it's hard. It's kind of hard to do it intentionally because the enemies will usually knock you off of them if you try to get too close. So if you can do it, try to get it because it does nice damage if you can get those throws in. But don't worry about it too much. Hitting those health canisters will give you most of your life back usually. This is pretty much the same as dealing with these enemies before. It's just, a little bit of a tighter space since you can't scroll the screen. But the main idea, try to group them together into that corner. Like, knock the one out of the air so that he falls down with the other guy in the corner. And try to get them both in that corner. And then use your short dragon punches to just beat the shit out of both of them simultaneously. You'll damage both at the same time. It's a good technique, for a speed run because whenever you can combine enemies and hit both at the same time, you're saving a ton of time, and it's also great just for general play. It makes it a lot easier. It's not too hard to do. You just got to try to knock that guy down right next to the other guy, see like that, and then you get them grouped together. Of course, that guy died, but that's the general idea. So, yeah, those air throws are nice when you get them, but it was a very rare thing for me. You also have another move I forgot to mention. If you do a fireball motion, sliding down to forward, a fireball like in Street Fighter, and then hit one of the attack buttons, you'll fire your gun, which is a projectile weapon. It's quite weak, but it actually works well on some enemies because they'll keep trying to charge into you, and they'll keep charging into the shot if you time it right. But as I got better at the game, I just found it that I didn't really need it. So I pretty much, when I used it, it was usually an accident. I mean, occasionally I would use it, but I just found that the short dragon punch was so damn effective on most of the enemies. And, dashing in general, like, to move around. I didn't really end up, like, needing the gun after I started getting into trying to, like, play real aggressively. The gun wasn't really fitting into that style too much for me, so it is there if you want to use it, though. You can incorporate it. And, not everyone is going to want to play super aggressively on the enemies. It may not feel natural, so the gun is definitely something to consider using. Those are the only 3 power moves that I'm aware of. But, yeah, this boss is another very easy one. He's very easy to exploit with those short dragon punches. He'll get stuck in that, and he won't really be able to respond. The AI is not able to really figure that out. I was able to figure out a lot of this shit pretty quickly because the boss fights, because, I'm so used to exploiting fighting games. I go through hundreds of fighting games on the channel. And, I get pretty good at exploiting the AI just by going through them. I'm really, when I play fighting games, I'm usually just going for the kill to get it on my games beaten list. So I just do whatever I find that works, and I'm usually able to find shit that the AI struggles with. Though some fighting games give me a hell of a fucking time, not all of them. I mean, some of them, there's a lot of them that take a few hours, but some of them are really difficult. I think Voltage Galkaiser was one that I think took me either 4 or 5 hours to beat. That was a real tough fighting game for me to exploit. I found that one. That one gave me a real hard time. I got to the end of the first Art of Fighting, and I wouldn't think that would be that hard, but for some reason I find the semi-final guy to be extremely difficult, so I haven't been able to complete that yet. I still have the saves for those games, so I can go back to them, but I probably have about 70 games that I have saves for on the emulation computer, which is all emulated games, older systems. So there's a lot of stuff to get back to. So yeah, try to group those guys together. Get the health as you need it. A lot of times you can save the health canister if you don't need it, and you can go back to it during certain fights, like boss fights. But with regular enemies, you may not always be able to backtrack back to it, so you have to experiment with that. These are the hardest enemies in the game. These things are a big fucking pain in the ass. When I was playing normally, these things were draining my all my health and killing me. And this is a pretty long checkpoint. This is one of the hardest sections in the game, this particular section. Because you have to beat all that shit and then you have to defeat this boss at the end. You don't have to take down all of his health, but most of it. But yeah, the idea with those red things is going to be similar to when we dealt with the regular orbs that weren't red. It's just that they have lightning that comes out much faster. The best way I found to deal with them is to spam these short dragon punches mostly, and eventually they will kind of run into those dragon punches. I don't worry too much about timing the electricity because it's just so fast. So I keep spamming the dragon punch, and I basically just hope that it gets through. And if I can knock them to the ground, the red orbs, then I can do ground attacks on them, like sweep kicks and things like that to damage them while they're on the ground. But they're a big pain in the ass. And the boss is pretty much going to be the same thing we've been doing with spamming the short dragon punches. Same strategy with that. These guys are a lot easier than some of the other enemies on the previous level, because there's these enemies that do this rolling charge where they roll through the air at you. And you can counter that with the gun. If you time your gunshots properly, you can counter it, and you can just keep shooting them whenever they roll at you. You just keep your distance and shoot them when they roll in the air. So that is a tactic I was initially using, and it worked, quite well, but it was a slower method, and it was still kind of dangerous. So I actually ended up just playing aggressively, where I get close to the robots and then I spam the small dragon punches, basically, and I use that on most of the enemies. It's pretty much a universal tactic that works very well. See, that's the gun, but I rarely use it. There is a checkpoint in this stage as well that you'll get to continue from if you die. It's right near where the boss is at. The game is pretty decent with checkpoints, but the previous area, it's a very long section with, before you get to the checkpoint, you have to beat that whole section. So that's one of the toughest parts of the game. The game is really not that hard, but, it's moderate, I guess, but the speedrun made it a little bit more challenging. This guy is a pain in the ass. He's a lot more resilient to the dragon punch spam. So it's really, it's not going to be a fast way to take care of this guy, but it works. It's the fastest way would be if you could attack him in different ways and get into his openings, like maybe land jump kicks, land some dash attacks and shit like that. But I never found a good strategy for this guy. I didn't play him enough to get a good, a fast strategy anyway. I mean, this was a good enough strategy, just spamming these short punches mainly. I mean, eventually you will win. My playthrough on the FM Towns Marty on normal was actually a little bit faster. A few minutes faster than this. But both of these runs were about 10 to 12 minutes faster than any videos I saw on YouTube. So, I I would say that they're speed runs basically, but not refined. But there's really not much footage of these games online, so this is probably going to be about the best footage that you can get right now. But these are awesome games. So yeah, eventually you will break through this guy. If you want, you can allow him to experience the taste of your metallic ball sack, but that's optional. You don't have to do that. I do find it makes the game a lot easier, but it's really just, it's optional. So yeah, now you're pretty far in the game. There's not a hell of a lot left at this point. But this is a tough stage. This checkpoint is very long. You have to go through 2 entire sections basically to get the checkpoint. So You're going to have to clear out this whole ship part and another part indoors. And then you'll get the next checkpoint. So, yeah, this is tough. I guess this is the toughest section of the game. Second to that would be the beginning of stage 4, I believe. This is difficult because there's a lot of robots to deal with. And eventually you got to deal with those red orbs again, which are a huge pain in the ass. For these guns, what I do is I dash into them as soon as they appear on screen, which does immediate damage, and then I follow it up with a dragon punch. And that usually destroys them right away before they can even shoot at me. So that's just a fast strategy, but it's probably it's probably a good one to use. It's easy to do. So yeah, I get it in one combo. I take out that gun immediately. So I think it's a good tactic for anyone to use. So now we got our first red orb that appears here. These things, of course, are a huge pain in the ass. Luckily, there's only one in this area. I like to focus mostly on the flying guy first and deal with him and get him out of the way. And I will try to hit the red orb if I can hit it while I'm hitting the flying guy. Sometimes I will take a little time to fight it, but I'm mostly focusing on the flying guy first. I want to get him out of the way. Now I can deal with this red orb alone at least. And I'm mostly going to go with dragon punches to deal with this thing. You can use the dash, but the dash doesn't always hit when they're really low on the ground. These guys can be tricky because they're evasive. You hit them and they go into the background where you can't hit them. So I like to knock them to the ground, and if I do it well, I can combo them as soon as they hit the ground, and they don't have a chance to disappear again. See, like that. If you can kind of knock them out of the air and then land a dragon punch just as they're trying to get up, you can get like extra damage in, it seems. Like that. So when I'm playing it well, that's what I end up doing. Now you have two guns that come up. Use your dash comboed with a dragon punch to take out the first one, and then try to do the same on the second one if you're not getting shot at. You're probably going to have to jump over its fireball and attack it that way. But yeah, same kind of crowd control. By this point, you're probably getting pretty good at dealing with multiple enemies. Make sure you grab that health canister. When I first was doing my speed run on this level, I actually dashed right past the health canister, and then I died in this area because I didn't have enough health, so make sure you get that. You don't want to be dashing so aggressively that you dash right inside this building and miss the health. That's what I ended up doing. Now, this is not a checkpoint. You still have to beat this whole indoor area and the boss, and then you'll get to the next stage. But there's no checkpoints in this whole level, so this does amplify the challenge. Same way dealing with these guys. These are like some of the easiest enemies in the game. Just dash, uppercut a few of them. Now, whenever those walls come down, they can hurt you, and I have died on them. I've actually beaten the stage and then died on the wall, which is ridiculous, but they can kill you. You have to be careful about how you approach those walls. Like, if you get too close to them, they damage you. Also, if they come directly on top of you, they do a lot of damage. So, got to be careful about those barriers that come down. Same tactic here. Try to group the enemies in tight little groups and damage them all at once. Luckily, they give you some decent health pickups. See, that wall knocked me down? That's what you gotta watch out for. Now, these red guys can be very, very difficult. I actually deal with them much better on the FM Towns version, but here I had trouble with them in this run. I never really learned how to fight them properly because the gun doesn't work because they roll underneath the bullet, so you can't shoot at them like you can with the other rolling enemies. But you can still try to combo them and get them in with those uppercuts, but they do get out of it a lot easier. So these guys are tough. But I would recommend trying to corner them and trying to get them in those uppercut combos like we've been doing, if you can. You may want to mix up your moves a little bit, though, because sometimes that doesn't work too well. I try to come down on them with a jump kick and then go into a dragon punch. It seems to allow me to get it in easier. But, I still don't have any great technique for these guys. Like I said, I don't know if they were easier in the FM Towns version. I was also playing that version on normal, but I didn't notice much of a difference in difficulty when I changed this game to hard. But for that version, I don't know. They may be easier. I did notice that some enemies went down easier and some enemies were harder for me on the FM Towns port. But I only played through the game once, so I don't know if I kind of got lucky or exactly what was going on. So yeah, make sure you watch out for those barriers. You do have to destroy them all before you can proceed, which is kind of strange. Yeah, so get your health there. And now this boss will be easy. You can pretty much... I believe what I do is I jump kick him and then I do my uppercut. I found that to work the best. Similar to what we were doing on those red guys. So you can keep spamming uppercuts, and it does work eventually, but I remember to speed things up a little bit, I think I started using some jump kicks. Unless I didn't do it on this attempt, but I was doing that when fighting him. Maybe I just stuck with the simple maneuver here, just kept it simple. Because if you try to do other attacks, a lot of times you will take damage. But see, I got a jump kick combo in there. And that can work well if you jump kick and then land with the dragon punch, the short dragon punch. One thing that's irritating about this guy is he will counter your short dragon punches and damage you a lot. So if you're getting countered a lot, you may need to do more jump kicks and combo in the dragon punch from a jump kick. So that's another thing to consider, but generally, you'll have most of your health when you get that health pickup, so you can usually just win out of sheer brutal force of just doing those it's like a numbers game. You just keep spamming those short uppercuts, and eventually it'll probably get through. He's probably not going to counter it more than the amount of damage you're doing to him. So yeah, for this guy, very easy. What you should really be doing is dashing at him, because you see I got caught up here and took a lot of damage, but what you should be doing is you want to dash into him with your running dash and then start comboing uppercuts. If you just combo the short uppercuts without being close to him, a lot of times he will end up getting you. So it's better to dash at him. I didn't execute it well here at all, but I ended up doing well enough on the rest of the boss gauntlet. This is basically a boss gauntlet with a bunch of bosses, probably all the bosses. But with the techniques we learned, it won't be too hard. I found this to be one of the easier levels because I already knew how, I could spam shit on the bosses. I like to do uppercuts all the way on the right side of the screen, immediately high uppercuts, to hit the first red asshole that appears. Those little tiny red men are a big pain in the ass because they throw grenades at you the whole time. So the sooner you can take them out, the easier it is to deal with the boss. If you can take them out while dealing with the boss at the same time, of course, that's going to be the fastest way, but that's not always going to be easy to do. So now once you can deal with the boss, he's not bad. You can go back to spamming your short uppercuts mainly, and that'll eventually get through. Even if you don't mix in other attacks, you'll probably get it. But if you're taking a lot of damage, you do want to close the gap by either jump kicking or dashing towards the boss to get in close, because otherwise they can fuck you up if you keep spamming short uppercuts and you're staying at a distance. You want to be close to them when you spam the uppercuts. Otherwise, they will probably knock you out of it. So there's some health here. You can get that as needed. Same strategy we used before, but now you have minions with the boss, but they're not hard to deal with. They can just be a pain in the ass if you ignore them for too long. They'll start causing a lot of problems. So yeah, I think these bosses probably have less health too, because they seem to be dying a lot faster than they initially did. So I think it is scaled back. So yeah, now you have the final boss of the gauntlet, which is one of the harder ones, I think, if I remember right. But he's not bad if you do the jump kick comboed with the short dragon punch. See, like that. Yeah, actually, he's not too bad. I forgot. Yeah, this guy's not too bad. But you want to combo the jump kicks with the dragon punch, it seems. I guess he's actually the easiest one when you do it that way, because he went down pretty quick. So now after this, all you got to do is destroy a generator. Watch out for the barrier that comes down. I believe there's a barrier that comes down and that damaged me because I wasn't expecting it. So watch out for that. And go back and get your health if you need it. I wasn't actually able to get it, so I guess I should have got the health sooner. I shouldn't have been trapped between that barrier. I shouldn't have been on the edge of the screen. But you get the idea. Just don't do it that way. So now all you need to do is do a bunch of dragon punches. When you destroy this generator, those minions die too, so you don't have to worry about fighting those floating guys. Just ignore them. Try to hit them in your uppercuts as you're uppercutting the generator. But, I used a lot of short and some long uppercuts, some high uppercuts. But Now you can just dash to the end. The final boss is very easy. I don't think I ever died on the final boss in any of my attempts, so I don't know where it sends you back to if you die on the final boss. It may send you back to the beginning of this stage, but I'm not sure. I'm assuming it does, but I never got this. I never died on this guy. So this guy's very easy as well. All you got to do is get in close again and spam your short uppercuts. Like I said, that pretty much dominates most of the enemies in the game. He does move a lot, though. He's aggressive, so you may want to jump kick him occasionally to get in position. Dashes are not always going to be effective to get them because he'll counter them sometimes. So, but for the most part, as long as you're like medium distance or close, you can keep uppercutting, doing these short uppercuts. He's going to have trouble with this. Eventually, you will just win. This is basically, I think this is the same boss that we fought earlier. It's just that now you have to take all his health down, and he has a little bit of more aggressive forms that he takes as he turns colors, but very similar. There's a lot of slowdown on this part, too, so that kind of messes up your inputs. It makes it a little harder than it should be, but it is very easy when you spam this technique. But yeah, this is a great game. I would highly recommend it. The music is awesome, too. It's kind of like a more beefed up version of the Genesis kind of music. It has the same kind of sound processor, but it's a much more powerful version of the one in the Sega Genesis. So X68 has some amazing music. Just when I was previewing games on Hyperspin interface, I can see the videos of the games before I play them, and the music is great. Let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching.